And the question for us today is, how do you have this attitude of, we got this?
My number one message that I have that gives me strength is I don't have to win every time, but I could win this time.
Hey guys, welcome to the What Works For You podcast, a podcast where we discuss what works for different folks. This is your host, Zev Wolfgeyer. I'm here with Tzvi Schwartz, someone who is really excited, someone who is really exciting to be around. Ever since I know you, Tzvi, you always had this attitude of, we got this, talking about in camp, in the army, as a rabbi in school, or even in business. You always have this attitude of, we got this. And when I say we got this, I mean we, not I. Meaning you're always pumping up people around you. There's a certain vibe, and it's powerful. And the question for us today is, first of all, how do you maintain it, or what causes it? Like, how do you have this attitude of, we got this?
First of all, Zev, thank you for accusing me of that. I appreciate it. And, I could only speak of what works for me. And that's, I love that. That's the title of your podcast. Often, I have different meditations that give me the power that I need to maintain that joy and positive energy and my belief in God and my belief in humanity. And, each time it's a little bit different, but there are certain truths that I know to be true, and to live by them is challenging, but to not live by them is, to betray what you know is real. And those truths were revealed to us, by the Rebbe, the unconditional love that God has for us. I had a student just the other day. He was asking me, where do you get strength? And I was literally reading the book to my kids. It's phenomenal how, like, we have a child inside of us, and reading this book, Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, a 3-year-old who just, his father told him, don't be afraid, only fear your Father in heaven. And he lived by that truth. And to see someone who did it and how successful they were makes it so much easier for us. So for example, I'm known to go into show and to dance a lot. And I think to myself, King David, he had a lot to lose. He was a king, and he had, his dignity. He had the dignity of his people at stake when he danced. And nevertheless, he understood that to serve God with joy is not embarrassing. And I think to myself, King David, thank you for paving the path for me. Like, you did it already, and you were successful at it already. So I just need to enter that zone.
Interesting. So you're saying is
Zev, what do you think about that?
So first of all, that's amazing that you're able to tap into that reality, have those role models.
I think I dropped it, a little fast, but that's real.
So I meaning that's I think meaning you took icons, icons that are forever, meaning these are Torah icons. Baal Shem Tov is a Hasidic icon, and you're tapping into their legacy. You're tapping into their unlimitedness, and it sounds like meaning their story is your story, and obviously meaning they are the prototype. They are the fearless, and the joyful, but yet you're able to enter it with your life in your way, and as you said, it's your way of doing it, and in other words, you wouldn't say that you're able to dance like David HaMelech, but you're bringing it to your situation. And what's interesting, you said you were honest. You're like, it's not always easy. It's a philosophy. It's something I believe in. And I try to click into that, and I do meditations to revamp myself when it needs to revamp. And you said every time the meditation's a bit different. What do I think? I think that is amazing. I think that is powerful. And I think it's copyable. It's you could put this advice could be for the next person also, because everyone has these stories. Everyone we have throughout the Torah different figures. We have throughout Hasidic literature. We have tremendous amount of figures, and it sounds like you take them serious, and you ask yourself if they exist in either the story, what's the message for me? So I think that's amazing that you're able to do that.
Right. Wow.
And I think it's
I
amazing.
love how you put it into words, you know, and what I wanted to share is like one of the powerful, you know, beliefs is the inherent goodness within a person is a piece of God, you know, and that's such a powerful truth, in that if you know that, and you know that deep down within me and within the individual standing next to me is an actual, you know, essential part of Hashem. If I could see that, and honestly, you know, there are times I mess up and I fall, and then I find myself rejoicing, and I'm like, wow, God, you love me despite this, like despite me not being perfect, so far from perfect. And then I really get the joy. And I honestly, I feel joy more after I, you know, after I fall than when I'm standing strong, because these inherent truths are so much more powerful than the things that we carry on a day to day. So, you know, it's an interesting thing, you know, that it was in today's Tehillim, Noira alila al bnei Adam. You know, Adam, when he ate from the fruit of the tree of knowledge, he's kicked out of Gan Eden, and on his way out, he says, God, you set me up. The Torah was written prior to the world's existence. So it was written in Torah, in Bereshis, that I ate from the tree of knowledge. You knew I was going to eat from this tree. You know, but the fascinating thing is, it's in the Tehillim, meaning the message is meant to inspire us. It's meant to inspire us. There's so many ways to say the same statement. You know, you could say the statement in a painful way, and in a way of anger, or you could say the statement and say, "Wow, God, you want me to know that you love me despite my failings." Wow, like, if we look at it from the way that King David is saying it, it's a verse that we say to him, God, bring me that awareness that I fail, and despite my failings, you love me. You know?
Wow. So
those are and if I could see that in myself, I could see that in others. I could see that in others, you know, where if someone wants to talk nonsense about somebody, you know, this is a person who's a piece of Hashem. Am I aware of that? You know, because if I'm not aware of that, then the external trappings, they look very, you know, negative. Anyway.
Well, so I want to say is, first of all, that's very rich what you just said. That is advice for so many things. You touched Avos Yisrael. You touched the idea of seeing a godliness in every single person. Seeing, and obviously that includes a purpose. That includes the idea that they belong right there, and whatever they're going through is that's where they're meant to be, and you're supposed to approach it with a certain godliness. So that's rich in its own sake. And in fact, I was going to talk about Avos Yisrael, but I guess we're already going there. And also the idea of picking yourself up after you fall. You mentioned that you're empowered with this philosophy, and then the question is, what happens after? And you're saying is, oh, what happens is no matter what, I'm able to keep this steadiness. There's a consistency in my happiness, in my joy, because even as I'm falling, I'm realizing that Hashem wants me right there. I'm here where I'm meant to be, and that sounds like it keeps you on fire. And not only that, you're able to use that same logic for another yid, for another person, and it's constantly walking around with empowerment. That's amazing. That's powerful. So, wow, thank you. Wow.
These really are powerful. These really are powerful meditations, you know. And I remember once I wrote to the Rebbe, and of course I was feeling like, you know, I missed an opportunity, and I put the letter in, and I opened up, and the Rebbe said, and this is a powerful truth, that there are certain years where there's two Adars. What does that mean? First of all, Adar is a month of joy and a month of good mazel. And the point is that the year before the moon was lacking. The sun had more days than the moon. The year before that, the moon was lacking. It had less days than the sun. But suddenly there's a leap year and the moon jumps ahead of the sun, having more days, more lunar days than solar days. So the Rebbe says the same is true in our life. You can miss an opportunity. And because you missed another opportunity and another opportunity, suddenly it has a slingshot effect. And all those missed opportunities become a much bigger opportunity. And that truth that the Rebbe shared with me in that letter is so powerful that I think about it often. Like, otherwise it would cripple me. I just missed an opportunity. How do I get up from that? You know, so here the Rebbe is saying you missed an opportunity. And I see that, you know, in my marriage. I see that, you know, that often I wish things went smoother, and sometimes there's hiccups and there's difficulties in, you know, in being able to provide amply, you know, livelihood, and different challenges that we have. And those challenges, they forge a deeper relationship. They actually make us richer in the end zone. So if we could see that and say, you know, thank you, Hashem, that you gave me this opportunity to use this moment as a springboard, you know. So if I see it with deals that didn't go through, and because they didn't go through, I was able to learn from them much more than had they gone through. The pain, the all those things made me more of a vessel for the next blessing, which would be even bigger. So that's a truth. That's a Torah truth.
Oh, wow. Dude, this is amazing. This is amazing stuff. Wow. I hear the energy over, meaning you hear you're empowered.
And by the way, it's not like I'm, yeah.
Could finish my saying? It's not like,
right. And it's not perfect. It's not perfect. It's not perfect. You know, sometimes I miss big opportunities and I fall flat on my face. And I'm like, what did I just do? God gave me an amazing opportunity on a silver platter, and I had to do something stupid or to mess it up. And it's like, where do I get up from here? And again, this truth, you know, that there's a leap year. There's a concept of a leap year. There's a concept of, because I fell behind, God will give me now an opportunity to jump ahead. And it's a fascinating divine mercy, you know.
So this philosophy, first of all, in some ways, if someone always had it, would be invincible. Like a person would be invincible if he had this. You're also human, and you're sharing the fact that it doesn't always kick in right away. Meaning, this idea of a leap year is you have to remind yourself. In other words, the moon comes and goes, and it sounds like it's a good farbrengen to farbrengen with yourself and to, you know, speak to yourself. So let me ask you, like, what helps you remind yourself, like, as you know, you fall behind and you said there's frustration and it doesn't turn out your way. Is there any tricks to help yourself to jump back on the track and remind yourself lunar year? Is it just a one word thing? I mean, like, how do you, meaning a lot of times when we're going down, you know, we're going too quickly down, and like we, you know, luckily enough, if we know we're angry, you know, we're constantly, we're mindful, like I'm right now behaving, you know, not my best, you know, I could use my brain more, you know, behave more from a neshama perspective. Or so what helps you like click out of that downward spiral?
Well, first of all, it's the realization that those messages are not going to get me anywhere. They're just, you know, I constantly get those messages from guys that they're like, oh, I want to feel bad, and I want to like sink into my misery. And I'm like, yo, stop whining. You know, like, where's that message gonna feed you? Where's it gonna lead you? And really, it's the next best move always. That is, you know, there's a message in the Hayom Yom that speaks to me, and it says, God is a living God. So, like, with sighing, you know, like, God is a living God means if I believe that the world was created 5,000 something years ago, then every day that's gone is gone and can never come back. But if I believe in a living God, if I believe in a God that's recreating the world anew every second, so now he takes this moment with all the baggage from the past and sets up a ultimate brighter future. So if I believe in a living God, and this is Ahyayim, these are the truths that the Rebbe literally inspired us and fed us. I truthfully don't know how a Jew remained solid in his Judaism prior to these truths being revealed. Like, if I didn't know this, if I lived in a world where I was just beating myself up for every misdeed that I did and thinking everything is gone and lost forever, I would be crippled. I would be, to say the least. And here we see the Rebbe gave us these tremendous, valuable truths. It's interesting. One day I walked into Shul and I danced like a real, I saw that, I call it, the pretzel syndrome. When everyone is being under such social pressure that they're in a pretzel, like they feel like the guy to the right is telling them to go like this. The guy to the left is telling them to go like this. Now they're in a pretzel and they feel stuck. And then everyone's telling them to smile. And they're like, I can't smile. I'm stuck in this pretzel, and I can't move. Right. And meanwhile, the idea of living, and it's fascinating is I heard this fascinating, I don't want a trick to like get out of when you have a stiff neck, you put your fist to your chin. And I heard this from a fascinating doctor, and you push against the pressure, and suddenly you find you released yourself from that stiffness, meaning the stiffness is caused by the stiffness. So if someone says, oh, I have a stiff neck, if someone tells themselves this message and they start dealing with themselves very delicately, their stiffness gets worse and worse and worse. Versus if they put their chin to their stiffness and they challenge the stiffness, suddenly they find themselves loose because they broke the lie right where it is. So one day I'm dancing in shul and I'm really making a ruckus and everyone's getting involved, everyone's dancing. And my father, he walks out of shul with me, and I was expecting him to say something like, oh my gosh, Tzvi, what did you do over there? And he said to me something. He said, Tzvi, you have big vessels. You have big vessels. And I said, Ta, I really appreciated that you said that, because a fool would have told me you have a lot of light. A lot of light. I hear that from a lot of people. You have a lot of energy. That's not true. Energy comes from Hashem. Strength comes from Hashem. Vessels is, I'm willing to accept it. I'm just willing to accept it. My father didn't say, Tzvi, you got this tremendous light. He said, Tzvi, you have this tremendous vessel. What's the vessel? The vessel that you have is the knowledge that you're loved unconditionally. The knowledge, that's the power that lets you walk in there and challenge the pretzel and say, hold on. Says who we got to be all stiff. Says who we got to be. Who? The creator of the world? The creator of the world? There's a fascinating first halacha in Shulchan Aruch, al yivosh mipnei amaligim. Don't be embarrassed from those who are gonna scoff you, and you have 120 years to live, and you have a truth that you have to stand up to, a truth that you're of my mission and your mission and all of our mission together. And the crazy thing is that the darkness is there begging us not to take it seriously. That's literally what it's doing. It's literally saying like, yo, I'm telling you to get into a pretzel right now, but really, and I know that if you're in a pretzel, you can't move. You're stuck. So don't listen to me. It's like begging you, and it's really
Wow.
a question. It's really a question of, am I willing, to be able to stand up to this and to live by this truth? And if yes, you're free,
Wow.
you know.
So
Anyway,
it sounds to me like you live Hasidus. In other words, you actually take serious what you're reading and you apply it. there were so many treasures in that, so many gems. I want to zoom into the one with your father saying you have a lot of vessels, because I think this is what we were asking for. We were asking for how do we stay with an attitude of we got this? How do we stay with an attitude where we constantly feel empowered, and not only that, it spreads to others? And I think we got the answer, or we're touching on the answer. Your father very wisely put it. He said, "You have a lot of vessels," and you're describing all these different things that you let affect your life, whether it's role models like the Baal Shem Tov, Avram Avinu, and I'm sure there's many more, whether it's ideas, how every single yid is a piece of Hashem, or this the idea that there's always hope, and there's always, right now you're supposed to be where you're meant to be, and don't worry, you can jump ahead. These are all massive gems that you hold with you. My question for you is, you described it very well. How do I become a vessel? So Tzvi, first of all, that's the question for now. How do I become a vessel to hold these powerful lights, to be empowered with the gift that Hashem gives me daily? Because everyone has these gifts. Everyone is learning the same svarim as you. Everyone's reading the same thing. The question is, or everyone has access to these svarim. How do I let God channel through me? How do I let myself be God's man?
Right. So, obviously, the first answer I would say is the word emunah, which many people think is faith. The word emunah, the Alter Rebbe says, is practice. That's crazy. So practice means you're gonna go for it. You're gonna hit the floor. You're gonna get back up. You're gonna try it again. Practice means it's a journey of attempts and success, attempts, failure, and then success. This is practice, and emunah means practice. And the more I'm going to expand, the more I'm going to. And for me, really, I know that to lock up means death. It's synonymous with death. Meaning, if I'm just going to be like, okay, put up walls, protect myself, never allow any light in, because I'm afraid, then I mean, I could do that for a minute. I could do that for a day. I could hide myself under the blanket. I could. No one's going to stop me, but it's not living. It's not doing my purpose and opening myself up and allowing myself to allow Hashem in, and all those gems become tremendous opportunities. Each one, I feel alive when I'm able to look at a person who, man, you must be having, I love you, like I'm not going to buy into your nonsense, like I see you more for than what you see yourself. And they resonate with that, and they come around and they're like, oh, thank you for being there for me in that I was in that struggle. And the same is true in every situation, where if I'm going to utilize it, like you said, if I'm going to utilize any of these truths, whether it's King David and Goliath and saying the Shema and believing, or it's in my own life, with the struggles that I have, knowing that God has pulled through for me in the past and expanding myself to let that happen again. And when disappointment comes, knowing that Hashem is asking me to dig deeper. He's asking me to really dig deeper into that more unconditional love. And, I actually had, I had someone who was really, hard, really difficult to work with. And he looked at me one day and he said, Tzvi, he says, man, you get all these bullet holes, but you don't die. And I'm like, it's true, like the truth is, we got this immutable strength from Hashem. It's like, but obviously there are days where I'm like, what are you talking about? There's pain and there's and it's holding us back. But for the most part, knowing these truths, actualizing these truths, every time we do it, and this is really my number one message that I have that gives me strength is, I don't have to win every time, but I could win this time.
Nice.
But I could win this time. This time I could win. Sometimes, if it's anything else, if I feel like it's now and everything ahead of me I have to deal with right now, I'm done. But if I say this challenge, this little challenge right here in front of me, I could handle this one. I could champion this one. I could make this darkness turn into light. If I could take that little challenge and do it, and then it becomes a successful momentum for the next one and for the next one and the feel good. And so these are basics. These are, but what I do want to share, and Zev, you're gonna allow, I hope you're gonna allow me, but it's something amazing, is, the day that you called me, and the reason why I agreed to this podcast is, so that morning, I'm teaching a class, and a guy hits me with the question. He says, how do I love God when God is in charge of the world and God is doing things I don't like? If God is in charge, I'm angry with him. And I had it was a question. And I asked, does anyone want to answer the question? And someone said, yeah, for me, what works is that there's a master plan. There's a master plan. And people around the room said, yeah, that's a deep wisdom. And that's a deep truth, if there's a master plan. So even though right now it hurts, it's going to come out good. And I just added a little bit to it. And I'm like, guys, but also remember that Hashem unconditionally loves you more than you could ever imagine. And I spoke about, how the Baal Shem Tov taught us that even, a person who waited to have a child all their life and finally got a child, how much they love that child, they can't fathom God's love for you. So I sort of sealed it. I felt like I sealed it with, not only is there a plan, but the master planner loves you so much. So you could really let go, And then my day starts and I get thrown into business, and the business day is really hectic. I mean, my website's crashing, and this guy's asking me for the contract. He wants to sign, but the contract's not going through. And it was really, really a stressful day. And I look up to Hashem. And, I said things that I don't feel good about. I'm like, Hashem, why? Why me? Why are you doing this to me? I'm just, and I'm really letting it out. And then you call me and you're like, see, I got this question for you. How do you always stay strong? I was so amazed by the timing. It was
Wow.
literally on the second.
Wow.
I was like blown away. I was like, Zev, I'm yours. First of all, I owe you so much because you were a messenger of Hashem, reminding me he's here and reminding me, and what did he remind me? He reminded me that he sees me as the guy who doesn't fall. In the moment that I'm falling, he sees me as the guy who doesn't fall.
Oh. Wow. Well, first of all, I'm honored to be God's messenger.
Anyway.
This is actually what I like and what I love about you is you're from bragging about not falling, but about falling as well. In other words, you're not living in the clouds. You have a practical job. You have I'm saying you have influence of people. You're not coming from the cloud. Like you're down here. You're human. You have ups and downs, and yet there's this the word slipping my mind, but you're constantly jumping back up. You constantly have this positive attitude, and as you said it was I just need to beat this battle, just this one, because a lot of people they feel like and this comes from it just maybe growing up with very strict parents or very exact rules, or it can come from many different things. But this idea that I have to be perfect, that means if I'm signing up, if I'm helping you now, I also have to help you next time. Or if I'm doing this mitzvah, I have to do next time. And I actually, I found it very, as a teenager, someone told me like, you could take a chattis for a week, or you could take a chattis for a day. And it was very empowering because I'd be learning halacha and I'll be like, oh, that would be cool. But like, I would know like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to upkeep this, at least what I'm holding now. And the ability to say, okay, I'm taking this for a week. And then I am totally okay with dropping this. In fact, I learned later on you have to say bli neder. But it's this ability to take one thing at a time. And you're saying is that you're taking every single step, one thing at a time. And I think that helps, first of all, you pick yourself back up, because also you have this philosophy, and a lot of times philosophies can weigh down on people. But in your philosophy, you're also understanding that every single second matters. Every single second counts. And therefore, right now counts. It doesn't matter right now about tomorrow. It doesn't matter about yesterday. I got today, I could win. And I imagine when you said this one I could win, you're talking about any battle, or you're talking about only battles that you know you could win.
Right. In the moment, the battle that's being thrown at us, that's all we got. If that's all I'm gonna focus on, and I'm gonna say, Hashem, this is what you're throwing at me right now, and this one I could do. But if I start collecting all the different baggage that I have, from all the different years, it's overwhelming. It's like, oh my gosh. But if really we look at those little, and they're not little. And, I was apprehensive also to talk about how I overcome my challenges, because like you saw, every time I say, come on, guys, Hashem loves you, I get that, it becomes, the challenge, the challenge continues, and, and it's another day, but the truths that Hashem revealed to us, and the truths that are revealed to us specifically in Chassidus, the unconditional love that Hashem has for us, and the attitude of God is a living God. These truths are so relevant to be able to make it in a day like today.
Oh.
And in your own truth, in your own,
Yeah. So let me actually take this a bit further, because I know that you don't only take this on the defensive side, that meaning, in other words, you're not taking this fact that Hashem runs the world to get yourself back up. I know my brother told me that you at one point took upon yourself, it was 15 minutes or a certain amount of time, that this time is going to be dedicated to God, or this time is going to be dedicated to the Rebbe. Could you tell me a bit about that? Is that still going?
It was for quite a few years. No, it's not. It's not. Once married and kids, I don't remember when it was that it stopped. But the concept is there. The concept is there. It's not as it was, and I appreciate the reminder to get back into it, because it's still, it's the idea. It's the same concept, which is, I don't want to know necessarily about what I did in 23 hours of the day and 50 minutes. I can't control that. I could, obviously, to a certain extent, but the idea of dedicating 10 minutes where I said, Hashem, I'm listening, these are 10 minutes that I'm listening. And for many years, it was at a set time where I would, shut down whatever I was doing, and I would open up a sikha of the week, and I would learn it. And often, very often, the message was very, very on point with what I was struggling with at that given moment. The idea that, and I shared this with students, the idea that, you come into the house and the first thing you do is 5 minutes of listening, then whoever is in the home feels validated by you, feels comfortable. I said, simply from a relationship perspective, I'm giving Hashem 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I'm giving that to him to hear everything he has to tell me about whatever it is that I'm going through in my day. And I kept to it very, very consistently. Now already I go with the app. It's a sikha where the Rebbe speaks daily sikha. But it's not at a set time. And still the messages are always, are always pertinent. They're always relevant. But the idea that you could take a certain amount of time in your day and open yourself up and say, I'm listening, I'm here. And what that does to the rest of the day is phenomenal. It really does. It changes everything.
I'm sure.
So we think it's all or nothing, and it's really not. It's really not all or nothing. It's one step in the right direction, and that was basically what that move was,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Wow.
I
Okay.
I could get into those messages, but and how they were relevant.
Wow. Okay. So you're saying is you're opening up yourself to have the Rebbe's message in your day, and you would set a specific amount of time and basically just be a vessel, just be ready to listen. Wow. So I know you have some interesting stories. You would stop in the middle of whatever you're doing. I know, because I've heard some funny stories. You have any funny stories you could relate? Actually, you want to share one story about that? Of like just stopping in the middle of the whole world and being an owner of time instead of letting time own you?
I don't know. What I would relate is the idea of, I had a friend who would come over to me and say to me, today focus on Maida'ani. What does Maida'ani mean? Or today focus on, a different bracha in davening. And it was interesting because I would later open up the sikha, and the sikha was about that. Wow. So, for example, one day he's like, Tzvi, focus on the line She'ibana Beis HaMikdash. So I remember I learned the pasuk She'ibana Beis HaMikdash Meir V'Yameinu V'Seichel Keinu B'Seir Secha, and then I sat down for that day's 10 minutes of learning. I opened up a sikha at random, and it's talking about this pasuk, and it wasn't one time. It was like, what does it mean V'Seichel Keinu B'Seir Secha? And it talks about how some Jews have to struggle, to earn a livelihood. But if a Jew merits and he studies Torah properly, his Torah could bring enough light into the world that his money, his livelihood flows in easier. So I was studying like that pasuk that my friend was challenging me to say with more kavana. I was opening up that day to the sikha. And it happened a few times that something that you're going through, something that you're living, becomes experienced in the Torah that you're learning in that time. So wow. It's definitely good advice for anyone. Good advice for anyone is to allow yourself. I remember once I asked at a meal if I could share Dvar Torah, and people were being very honest with me, and they're like, not right now, like we're enjoying our meal. And I said, I said, listen, guys, I'm like, listen, for the hours that we eat, how many hours do we eat? For the hours that we sleep, for the hours that we engage in whatever material pursuits that we have, 5 minutes to hear something, from the creator of the universe, a little light to go on. And they were receptive, and they said, okay, 5 minutes, we'll give you 5 minutes, but in those 5 minutes, we're able to do so much. And that's really what trickles into the rest of our day, that the awareness, and it's funny that I'm speaking because, at my meal, my dinner, every time I sit down with my family, I'm starving, I come to the table and I'm ready to eat. And my wife says, Tzvi, share Dvar Torah. And I'm like, now, first let me fill up, and then we'll talk. And I'm aware of the struggle. I'm aware of the struggle itself. In that Hashem wants us to have an uplifted life. Hashem wants us to have an uplifted day. And in order for us to do that, we need to let ourselves open up just a little bit.
Oh.
Anyway.
Wow. Okay. So first of all, thank you
for that, but
I'm sure. First of all, thank you so much for sharing that. I want to thank you for coming on. This has been so insightful. There were so many ideas. I want to, before we go, I want to just go through a few. We asked, how do we maintain an attitude of we got this? And you said you have role models, Torah role models, Hasidic role models, and you have Hasidic ideas that you actually apply, and you live by them. The idea that Hashem is constantly creating the world, and He's constantly creating you where you are, and therefore it doesn't matter the past. In fact, the past, even if it caused you to fall behind, it could get you to jump higher. You have this idea. Another idea is that every single yid is a piece of Hashem, and not only that, you apply this beautiful philosophy of the first one to every single yid, so you're able to be encouraging for every yid. It sounds like you also meaning, and then also another idea was, you said you go for this moment right now, and that's in line with the first one. Is if Hashem's constantly bringing wherever you're meant to be right now. These are amazing ideas, and then I think the most powerful. They're all powerful, but this idea of I am a vessel. I am ready to take in these ideas, and these ideas do not necessarily come easy. Rather, I do emunah. I have faith, and I practice it. And I fall. And this actually, according to certain people, the first mitzvah of Anochi, the first of the 10 Commandments, is getting educated about what we believe. And it sounds like you get educated, you remind yourself, you pick yourself back up. And it is not only defensive, it's also offensive. I know with your obviously Stroll, there's tremendous amount of stories. There's this idea of owning time, taking a few minutes, and what do you take those few minutes? You took it for Hashem. You want to hear what Hashem has to tell you. And it sounds like Hashem was giving you messages through your day-to-day. In fact, whatever you were willing to give to Hashem, Hashem gave you more information on. It sounds like wherever your friend encouraged you to give to Hashem that day, the Rebbe said, oh, and I have more information for you. So you started the becoming a vessel, and right then and there, the Rebbe's like, oh, you opened up. I got some gold for you. Let me fill up your pit. And I think that's amazing. There's so much to share. Let me ask you, Tzvi, do you have any parting words, some advice, some warm words, something for the listeners?
Love yourself and live the best you can. And in that way, you're going to be serving God in the most unbelievable way.
Wow. Nice. I like that. Wow. Thank you very, very much, Tzvi. Enjoy. Take care.